Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight to the first public LEPC forum. We are live streaming tonight, and so we want to welcome everybody that's joining us on YouTube. Tonight is very exciting. We have a lot of different organizations represented here that are going to be speaking about how we can better assist the citizens and community here in Baltimore County. We're going to be making a couple shifts to our agenda tonight. Unfortunately, the calls don't stop coming in, so we have a couple different people that are responding and on other calls that are going to be funneling in, so we're going to shuffle things around. Tonight we have several different organizations that are all represented, and they're all going to take the time to speak. Very first and foremost, I want to take a couple minutes and thank North Point Edgemere for hosting tonight. We do have emergency exits to the back and to the left. We also have bathrooms behind us. Please take a minute and silence your cell phone. Tonight we have a couple different topics that we're going to be talking about, but I just want to make two plugs. Very first, OEM is here tonight, and they are going to be speaking about CERT a little bit, which is the Community Emergency Response Team, which is a brand new program that we're going to be offering. And then MSP is going to be running a active assailant drill. And we are looking for community volunteers to help make that training more realistic. And I believe we have a member of the MSP here who would like to take a minute and say something about that.
Yeah. Good evening. I'm Adam Davey. I'm a sergeant with the state police. I'm a flight paramedic in aviation, and I'm one of our tactical paramedics. So just to clarify, the state police is supporting this event. It's being held by the federal government. So I'm just trying to help. I'm one of the organizers and planners for the event. So it's not state police. It's not a state police event. It's the federal government. Customs and Border Protection are the main ones who are running it. But the idea behind that is all we're looking for is we've already have all of our partners involved. So Baltimore County Fire, Baltimore County Police, all of the entities around the area are going to be involved with this, from the federal government down to local government. What we're looking for is if anybody wants to support us as volunteers to be role players. That's kind of where we're lacking. In the past, we've had about 75 role players for the previous years that we've done this event. What we're looking for is to get over 100. And where we've gotten a lot of our role players is from the military. So we have a great. Can you guys hear me okay, or do I need this? Can you hear me okay? Oh, for live stream. Okay, so what we're looking for is we've used military role players in the past. So we have a great. Our EMS partners are able to do a really good job of treating the 18 to 25-year-old male. We want to change that, so we want to get young people, elderly people. So if you're aware of any organizations, senior centers, Boy Scouts, any type of community organizations that would be willing to help us with role players, that's what we're looking for. I have the flyer and the information on it.
Thank you very much for being with us tonight. So I do want to take a couple minutes and kind of go over exactly who we are going to be having speaking tonight. But first and foremost, I want to take a minute and thank Chief Dixon for allowing this to go on. He's really empowered a lot of different individuals to kind of take the lead and really set up some very cool programs and really help push Baltimore County forward. And I'd just like to take a minute and welcome Chief Dixon and give him the opportunity to say a couple words.
Thank you. So first of all, I want, on behalf of our County Executive, Ms. Catherine Klossmeyer, Administrative Officer DeAndre Walker, DAO, Deputy Administrator Young, the Council, we want to say thank you because the LEPC, it exists to make sure we're better prepared. There's so many emergencies, so many types of incident types that we deal with. This allows us, when we work, our Office of Emergency Management, work with our other stakeholders, help us to be better prepared. So we're very thankful of this opportunity to meet. You know, many of you here we've seen on emergency incidents as I've talked, as people have come in, but to have a relationship with you. So we're thankful to this team, the work they're doing, because we want to be successful as we're moving forward and keeping our community safe. And everybody in this room is a great part of that, and the community, you are as well. As we call for you to take part in our drills, whatever the case may be, but we're in this together, and we're going to be better together. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Cap.
Thank you, Chief. So presenting tonight, I'm going to be talking a little bit about Tier 2 and LEPC. We have Chief Bykoff represented with the Office of Emergency Management. Captain Burrs is going to be speaking on behalf of Hazmat. Unfortunately, our ATR team is out on another call, and so I'll briefly speak about how Baltimore County ATR can assist the community. We have Terry Stapp with Health and Human Services, Jeff Donahue with MDE. Again, he is going to get pushed back a little bit. He's responding. Unfortunately, NOAA is not here tonight. They are dealing with a hurricane. And then we have MDEM and Coast Guard, and I know Coast Guard is waiting, dealing with some stuff with another emergency. We're going to push them to the end. So LEPC has existed for a multitude of years. It has always been something that's existed in Baltimore County, but it has consistently through the years been a private event that the closed door organizations represented here discussed how we can help the community. But the true purpose of LEPC is to involve the community and to better educate them. And so with the assistance of Chief Dixon, we have really launched a new vision for the LEPC, and we plan on bringing a brand new program to the citizens and community of Baltimore County. Kind of leading the way for that, we have Chief Bykoff heading up emergency management, myself at Station 14 with LEPC and Tier 2, Maxwell Cannon, he is our emergency planner. We have 3 safety officers, Lieutenant Rudisil, Lieutenant Wurzbacher, and Lieutenant Murphy, and then Chief Dillard is our field chief representing A Shift and is a deputy chief. The purpose and our goal is to really involve the community, bring them in, and establish a new relationship so that we can better prepare them for when emergencies arise. Our other goal is to increase our networking capabilities so that we can expand the services that we provide and we can better support the community in their time of needs. We also want to increase our LEPC support structure so that we have more community involvement. And then with that being said, our main goal is to receive feedback from the community so that we can provide you with the resources and the trainings that you want and need so that you ultimately are better prepared. As we move forward with our long-term goals, we want to develop increased infrastructure. We want to develop our Tier 2 capabilities so that we can increase our emergency planning and preparedness. And then moving along with our actions with the state police and with CERT and other trainings yet to be developed, we are looking to increase our community involvement in trainings so that we are obviously prepared for the emergencies that come to Baltimore County. What we have on the tables are QR codes so you can register your email if you want updates, as well as a suggestion sheet. And we're going to also make those available to our community members online so that they can have the same opportunities. Tier 2 was created out of a federal government need for better responsibility from businesses and organizations around the country. There was a number of terrible events that occurred that led to communities having disastrous consequences. And the EPA really wanted to create a way where the communities could be better prepared. LEPC has created thresholds where organizations have to report the quantities of materials that they have. They have to report where they're storing them, how they're storing them. They also report different products that they are creating. so that first responders are better prepared and have the capability to know what they're going into before they actually arrive on scene. This also leads to how Maryland prepares for this. We have the Maryland Tier 2 administration. It's headed up by MDE. Jeff Donahue is going to speak on that tonight. And those facilities in Maryland and specifically Baltimore County report to the motor systems. This is where their specific reportable quantities, where their 24-hour emergency contacts, and where their information is stored so that the first responders can have that access to that information. From there is where it really gets exciting and where Baltimore County's LEPC and Tier 2 kind of comes into play. We have a lot of new technology that is being placed in the fire department that allows us to pre-plan for these emergencies. It allows us to take the information off of motors, put it.
You hear me? Is that good? Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. Echo what Captain Dentler said about the importance. Oh, can you mute that? It's from an old PowerPoint. It's in the PowerPoint. Within our hazmat office, within the fire department, they've done a great job, but these two have really taken on an enormous amount of work over the last 6 months in revitalizing this program and creating something that's not only viable, but has the opportunity for a lot of growth. What I'm going to do, because I'm not going to repeat what Captain Dentler said, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what what we've been doing, kind of an update within OEM for the past few months, and then I will pass it on to the next person. So I'll start with a couple of our response updates. As most of you know, May 16th, we had a series of severe storms, one of which was a confirmed EF1 tornado that moved through the Dundalk area, primarily Merritt Boulevard between Wise and Peninsula Expressway, Willow Spring, and Keyway. There was also significant damage to an apartment complex in the Cockeysville area. We had over 1,000 residents without power and approximately 70 trees down. Very impressive in that within 36, 48 hours, all of those trees were gone. And we were back under what BGE would call relatively normal operations. This is a picture of the apartment complex in Keyway. This is Merritt Boulevard. The next one, and you'll notice, well, that's fine. This is the tree in the Cockeysville area. You'll notice that tree came out at its root. So that was the significance, that's an example of the significance of this storm that came through Maryland. And this is, of course, most people saw this on the news. This was the trampoline against the house in Dundalk. So our EOC was open that evening. We had multiple agencies in our EOC, including our Department of Health, Department of Public Works, Property Management, and then the Fire and Police Department, all working in concert to solve this crisis. June 18th, Hunt Valley water main break. 30-inch water main break broke or cracked at the intersection of just north of White Avenue and York Road. And I'll show you a video in about 30 seconds. There was 1,400 homes, 3 assisted living facilities, including Broadmead, which is an enormous footprint, and 11 businesses. Through a partnership with our procurement office, as well as partnering with Baltimore City, we were able to give out over 500 cases of bottled water to those people who are impacted. We like to remind people that we manage, in concert with Baltimore City, our water system. So the city is really responsible for those pipes, but our DPW has done a great job in building that partnership so that we are communicating effectively, we are letting our residents know what's happening. This was a very unique event because this pipe feeds a tank that then feeds the neighborhood south of it. So it was a very tight area, but those people were significantly impacted. Go ahead, next one. So this is just a brief video. That's what a 30-inch pipe looks like when it breaks and comes through the ground. We had some minor flooding. Luckily, there was a fair amount of drainage, but minor flooding west of York Road. But again, collaboration. Our fire department was able to very quickly alter running assignments to ensure we had water supply. Our health department was very quickly able to get sanitarians out to our assisted living facilities. Our Office of Community Engagement was very quickly able to let the community know what was happening, as well as provide that water. And then just as just to put a point on it, this actually is the new pipe, and you'll see you'll see it's about as big as some of the folks working down there. And this is the old pipe that they pulled out. There was an ongoing debate if the gentleman back here was wearing shorts, boots, or was that deep in the mud when they were trying to fix this hole. But great collaboration between the Baltimore County Department of Public Works, the City Public Works, and private contractors who do this work, who share supplies and equipment and share information to restore this as quickly as possible. Some special events that we've handled or that we've been a part of. August 13th through 17th, just 2 weeks ago, was the BMW PGA Championship in Cays Valley. Between 15 and 30,000 attendees each day. The 30,000 was Friday, Saturday, and most of Sunday. It is a very, very large event. Again, 962 acres is the size of Caves Valley. We were able to partner with EMS as well as MedStar. We were able to get our law enforcement partners with their private security. This was a national event for Baltimore County, really brought some great attention to us. And I wanted to highlight this because I know Captain Dentler mentioned how this collaboration between, can we go back a little bit? Okay, is it me? How collaboration is important and these public-private partnerships are important. In 2021, the first time the BMW event was here, we had 441 patient encounters because it's always the hottest weekend of the year. And we've transported 15 people from the site to the hospital. After action reviews, which I know many of you are familiar with, ongoing conversations with the BMW leadership, we made some recommendations, and we were one of the first counties to make these recommendations to the PGA. Providing free potable water, increasing engagement with the site medical staff, cooling and misting stations, and what I don't have on here is that they instituted a very good weather warning program for their patrons as well as their staff. And as a result, in 2025, we had only 102 patient encounters over the 4 days, a 75% decrease, and 6 transports, which is a 60% decrease, which I think is a good example of how these public partnerships and these communications can be helpful. So, yeah. The other special event that's occurring right now, August 22nd through September 7th, 10 to 15,000 people each day of the weekends will have the Maryland State Fair. We have some significant risks this year. We've got livestock from multiple states. If anybody's been reading the news, there is significant risk to our livestock and food and agricultural infrastructure. We're providing EMS support, law enforcement support. We're partnering with the state police to provide security as well as private security at the Maryland State Fair. So it's a busy time for us. I wanted to briefly touch on this because I know it's been in the news lately, and I know many of you are probably well versed in what's happening, but there have been some proposed changes to federal support that may affect local first response. And just to bring a very high-level overview, and I'm happy to speak to you individually afterwards, when a disaster is declared, the disaster is based on the amount of money spent by a local jurisdiction. So there is a suggestion at the federal level of raising that per capita, which would raise the amount of money that Baltimore County and Maryland would have to spend by multiple millions of dollars in order for us to be eligible for federal disaster aid. And that's not Maryland specific, that would be every jurisdiction. We are facing the potential loss of grant funding due to some of the changes at the federal level. There has been a push at FEMA to lower the level of direct federal assistance, meaning those IMT teams that many of you are familiar with, those extra resources are going to be fewer and far between. Two specific items that we already know are planning on happening is the discontinuation of door-to-door canvassing following disasters. Those of us in the population, or those people in the population who are disproportionately low income, disproportionately lack vehicles, lack good communication opportunities, are going to be less likely to get that disaster information without door-to-door canvassing. So this is going to come back to the local governments to handle. The other thing that we know has already been in the works is snow-related activities will have to be within 10% of the record snowfall. For Baltimore County, actually for Maryland, it's 30 inches or 29.5 inches, which doesn't seem like a lot, but as you know, snow's not flat. So when those days that you walked out of your house and there was 4 feet of snow in front of you, probably wasn't 4 feet of snow that fell, but we would have to get around 26 or 27 recorded inches to be eligible for disaster assistance. Been doing this for a little while. Baltimore County's pretty good, 6 inches, 8 inches, 10 inches of snow. We get over a foot, starts taking a little while to get that stuff cleared, especially if we have an extended cold period where we're not seeing melting. So that is certainly a concern. None of this stuff is set in stone, but these are some of the things that are being proposed by the federal government. You could see changes. And okay, so moving on, and I'll speak a little bit to those changes and how we can be supportive of that. At the end of next month, Baltimore County will be holding our annual Community Leaders Summit. This is community leaders across the spectrum, not just first responders. It'll be at the Towson University Union, QR code and URL. And again, when we're done, if you want more information, multiple public speakers, many community advocates, and we will be doing an introduction to CERT, Community Emergency Response Training, Community Emergency Response Teams. And CERT is a really great opportunity for those people who are not ready to be first responders, who don't want to necessarily ride an ambulance or ride a fire engine, to become involved in public safety in the community. They can do door-to-door canvassing. They can help with point of distribution. It's a specially trained program through FEMA that provides the opportunity for people within the community to become more active and to help. So that's happening. If you're interested, and you do have to register, so please look into that. September is National Preparedness Month. We are now in hurricane season. Please visit ready.gov. They've got some great information. Make sure you're following us, and our address is on the next page. On social media, we'll be putting out preparedness information throughout the month on how you can stay safe in your home and how you can make sure you're communicating effectively. So that's happening in September. And then I think, oh yeah. This is our social media, our Facebook and Twitter. We do put out emergency information, but I'm going to give you more information on emergency information on the next slide. But great opportunities to learn about preparedness. We put out a lot of information about upcoming events. We put out a lot of information about when rain and snow and heat are happening. So please follow us on those sites. And then finally, I always end these presentations with a reminder to sign up for our BALTCO Alert. BALTCO Alert is what we call our opt-in emergency notification system. You'll get weather warnings. You'll get notifications to shelter in place. You'll get notifications of certain upcoming events. We try not to abuse it to make sure that people are paying attention to it. It's not the phone call you get from your kid's school. It is confined to relatively important information. It's based on where you sign up. So you put in your home address. When something is occurring in your neighborhood, we'll be able to communicate with you that way. And that's it for me. Thank you again. Again, I want to thank Captain Dentley and Lieutenant Rudisill for all the work they've done. I'll be here throughout the evening, so when we're done, if you want to chat, if you have any specific questions for me, I'm happy to help. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Stacy Burrs, Captain at Station 14, and I'm here as one of your hazmat officers. I just want to take a few minutes tonight to talk about something we don't think about when hurricanes or floods are in the news: the risks from hazardous materials. Here in Baltimore County, we're no strangers to heavy storms and flooding with our proximity to the Chesapeake Bay, Patapsco, and Gunpowder rivers, and smaller local streams. Waters can rise quickly. When that happens, it's not just the water we need to worry about. We have industrial facilities, chemical storage sites, fuel stations, and the Port of Baltimore nearby. The transportation routes like 95, 695, 83, and the rail lines. We also have thousands of homes where everyday products such as cleaners, paints, and fuels that are stored in garages and basements. When flooding occurs, containers can break, tanks can be damaged, and those materials can spread into floodwaters, which means floodwater isn't just dirty. It can carry gasoline, pesticides, sewage, or even industrial chemicals. And once waters recede, they can leave behind contaminated mud, debris, and sometimes vapors. Here are a few things I'd like everyone to keep in mind. Stay out of the floodwaters. We've seen how fast water can rise, especially around Dundalk, Essex, Middle River areas. If you can't tell what's in it, treat it as an unknown hazmat. Don't try to handle suspicious container or debris. If you see a drum, canister, or unusual sheen on water, call it in. Our hazmat team is trained and equipped to handle it safely. Protect your home before storms. Store the fuels, paints, or household chemicals on higher shelves. Follow instructions, whether it's shelter in place, notice near a chemical facility in Sparrows Point, or an evacuation order along a flood-prone area. Those decisions are based on real safety concerns and not just water but potential chemical exposure. After the water goes down, be cautious. Don't let kids or pets play in leftover mud or puddles. Don't burn storm debris unless the county says it's safe. Burning can release toxic smoke. Our hazmat team works closely with Baltimore County Emergency Management and local industry partners to monitor and respond, but community awareness is one of our strongest defenses. The more you know about these risks, the safer we all are. The last thing I want to inform all of you about is a hazmat incident on August 3rd at Tilly's Chemical. The incident was contained to their property and inside of the warehouse. Chemical was stored in an improper location and resulted in a release of a substance. There was no threat to the public or surrounding areas. Company was on site with proper personnel who were able to assist emergency crews in identifying the substance. Tilly's collects all of their runoff on site and sends it out for processing. The immediate threat was mitigated to the point that a private company was able to come in, remedy the remaining material on site. No civilians or emergency personnel were harmed. Lastly, our hazmat team is here. If anybody has any questions, our new hazmat unit's outside if anybody wants to take a tour. Thank you and have a good evening.
Baltimore County never stops responding to calls for service, and unfortunately, Station 17 services need to be elsewhere tonight. And so I'm going to take a couple minutes and speak on behalf of the ATR team. Baltimore County has one career station, Station 17 in Cockeysville, that provides the advanced rescue for Baltimore County, as well as two volunteer stations, Station 48 and Station 35, representing the east side and the west side of Baltimore County. Each one of those stations has 2 boats apiece, and the volunteer stations, 48 and 35, they have 4 boats. Those teams go through training throughout the year to be able to provide water rescue services wherever they're needed within Baltimore County. When hurricanes do arise, we've got several different scenarios that these teams need to be prepared for. The very first one is during the storm when people are caught in the flood surge and they need to be rescued from the swift water environments. And then after the storm is over, we have the flooding scenarios to deal with. Every year during these events, we have vehicles that drive through floodwater and become swamped. And it provides a very dangerous scenario that the rescue teams need to take care of. These scenarios do not need to happen. If there is floodwater, there's no need to drive through it, and it causes a very large hazard for the community as well as for our rescue teams. One of the other services that the ATR team does provide is a partnership with the with Baltimore County Police and with the Maryland National Guard, and we have the HART team, that's the Helicopter Aquatic Rescue Team. When it does become unsafe for boats to go into those areas, we can rely on the resources that Baltimore County Police provides, and if it does become a state level or a federal level emergency, we can utilize the resources that the National Guard has so that we can rescue people from a helicopter platform. The individuals within Baltimore County that do have this training spend a significant amount of time preparing for these emergencies, and we have deployed throughout Baltimore County and throughout the country to provide these resources when these events do occur. Captain Berna with the volunteer, he is also on a call, and so I'm going to kick it over now to MDE. 5 to 10 minutes out. Okay, so then we are going to go to Terry Sapp. He represents Health and Human Services. So many times the needs go beyond necessarily the immediate call for service, and our partners with Health and Human Services provide a lot of care before and after.
Great, thank you. I mean, you don't normally think of the Health Department or Health and Human Services as a response agency. We don't have a lot of flashy vehicles and flashing lights, but I can tell you every single incident that Chief Bykoff talked about, the Health Department was actually a part of that response. Hit me a slide there. We are actually the lead under the National Response Framework for Mass Care and Sheltering. So that includes partnering with the American Red Cross to provide emergency sheltering for a hurricane if we know it's an event coming, where we can stand up a shelter if need be, again with support of all of our agencies, including the American Red Cross. We aid with family reunification and helping folks get reunited with those they're separated from, and we monitor vulnerable populations. We have over 300 nursing homes and assisted livings in Baltimore County, but we also have a significant number of independent living senior communities where we have a lot of folks that are particularly vulnerable during a hurricane. Just a quick statistic that they found that the weeks after the hurricane is when a lot of those post-storm heat exposure deaths occurred, and it was from that power outage and the lack of air conditioning. If you remember the derecho in 2012, we had a number of deaths, particularly in the Dundalk area. Those were all independent living folks, most of them on the top floor of an apartment complex, and they were all independent living. They were kind of off the radar. They're not in an assisted living. They're not in a nursing home, but yet no one was checking on them. And in one case, it was a senior citizen didn't turn his air conditioning on after he had lost power for a considerable time. He was concerned about having a high AC bill, and according to the family, he kept his AC off. It was that hottest week post-derecho, and it was a very tragic event. So it's one of the things we worry about when we have those big storms come in, is those power outages and the effects they'll have on the community. Next slide. We actually do have a role with a number of these healthcare facilities should they evacuate. We communicate both with the state licensing board to let them know that if we have a facility that's evacuating. This one was the St. Luke's Place fire. I think it was maybe 2 years ago. Again, it was independent living, but we have a lot of vulnerable citizens that are evacuated from their living situation, and what we were able to do is respond and assist with the accountability of helping track all the folks coming from point A to point B. When they leave from what was their home, they were then either going to go to a reception center and just kind of wait until they could come back in, or we were going to have to provide some type of sheltering. As it turned out, we were able to work with St. Luke's Place to ensure that all those folks had some place to stay for the night, and then our social services folks would then follow up with them the next day to see if there were any other unmet needs, things we could do to help them replace what they lost, whether it was medication. If they were in the SNAP program, we could help them with the replacement of their SNAP cards and other types of services. But we do offer, to our emergency management, when we do have these major events, like the fires that we've had recently, the health department is kind of a quiet partner that kind of comes in midway to see if there's ways that we can help with sheltering and evacuation. Next slide. And then again, it's that do you stay or do you go? Unfortunately, when you evacuate, the risk to those nursing home patients is significant. Some of them may not survive the entire process of evacuation, what they call transfer trauma. Next slide. But then the other risk is, do you stay or do you go? So we have to balance that of monitoring those folks, especially in the smaller nursing homes and assisted livings. Can they shelter in place for that hurricane? Because obviously moving them can cause even greater trauma to them and result in, unfortunately, sometimes even deaths. Just some other things that we do in the health department. My division is public health emergency preparedness, and mass vaccinations is kind of our bread and butter. If you came to any of our COVID mass vaccination sites, that's one of them. That's the biggest one that we had at the Timonium State Fairgrounds. We also have the ability to do what we call a quick strike or strike team with our mobile unit that basically kind of can roll into any facility, any building of opportunity, and set up a small vac site. One of the things that we think about for flooding in particular is vaccinations for tetanus and for hepatitis if need be. Tetanus, I can tell you, is a big one. I'm on a disaster team for the feds. I'm on a DMAT team, and we do a ton of tetanus shots for flooding survivors. So one of those things that we prepare for, hope we don't need. Next. Lastly, of course, tracking disease surveillance, making sure that after the floodwaters recede, all the facilities that have closed or who have been flooded are safe to reopen, because the last thing that we need are foodborne outbreaks, waterborne outbreaks, other types of health issues that we do tend to see after the hurricane. So really for us, for most of the response agencies, after the storm is passed and the sun comes up and the debris has been plowed away, they can kind of take a deep breath and go home. And for us, that's really when a lot of the hard work starts, because we are then handling a lot of those folks that were either displaced, or maybe they're sick, or they're dealing with disease, and that's where a lot of our efforts and surveillance take place. I can tell you, with the golf tournament and now with the state fair, our health folks were there around the clock, making sure that all of the food was being properly stored and was safe to eat. Because you don't know what we do until we don't do it. You don't hear about us very often. So if you enjoy your food at the fair, if you enjoyed the food at the golf tournament, and you didn't get sick, I could say you could thank public health for that, because they're on the scene to make sure that all the food is prepared and handled safely. Lastly, we also test for recreational waters. Not a priority really post a hurricane, but it is also one of the things we do. And again, we do focus on those lower income and our senior population. As Chief Bykoff said, we are very concerned about the impacts of these cuts on those populations because they are most likely to live near industrial sites. They're more likely to live in manufactured housing, which is not going to do as well during a flooding incident or a hurricane. They are disproportionately impacted by this severe weather. And again, they may have less access to health care, particularly mental health as well, and they may not be able to make those repairs after the storm passes. So having that door-to-door capability, making sure that they have access to all of the resources that the county has and that the state and feds have is crucially important post-incident. I think that's, oh, and last one, we do a lot of work with the community on their personal preparedness, especially before the storm. We know that the word is out about water and food and batteries and flashlights. So we also try to remind them, make sure you have those sufficient medications and that you have enough oxygen on hand. Have that backup plan. Most of the calls that we get in the Emergency Operations Center is, we don't have any power and we're on our last tank of oxygen. Who do we call and what do we do? So again, we try to prepare them ahead of time so they have a plan. Maybe they go to a loved one's house that has a generator. Maybe they will be able to go to a hotel if they have those means. But we try to work with them so they can plan ahead so that they're not calling 911, they're not calling the Emergency Operations Center asking for oxygen. And lastly, we monitor our dialysis patients. I could tell you not as bad for the hurricanes where the snowstorms roll around. The blizzards, we work very closely with the dialysis centers to make sure that they've contacted all their patients to do a mini dialysis before the storm, and also to, they put out what's called the 3-day diet so that they can kind of help those folks go through the storm, because usually it's about day 4, there's small cul-de-sacs that don't get plowed, that we get the calls of my loved one has to go to dialysis and they're trapped, they can't get out. If you remember Snowmageddon, we had a 101-year-old lady that got trapped in her house that needed to go to dialysis, and the engine going to the house couldn't get through, the medic couldn't get through, the special unit with the plow couldn't get through. I think we had a snow plow get stuck, so we ended up with a Humvee that we were able to arrange through emergency management, and finally the Humvee was parked at the end of the street, and they had to carry this 101-year-old lady out to the Humvee to get her to dialysis and then back. So again, you don't think about these things, you hear about it maybe on the news, but there's a lot of us working together between our agencies to make sure that we meet the needs of our citizens. And lastly, of course, we encourage everyone to check on their neighbors. That's me. I know I was speeding through a lot of this, only had a short time, but we are a public health emergency preparedness. We are located at the Drumcastle Government Center, and I also have a display over there, a little example of some of our evacuation kits and some of the things that we do. So thank you all very much. Oh, be lavalier.
And to round us out tonight, we have Jeff Donahue with MDE, and he is going to be giving our final presentation.
Good evening. Sorry for being late. I was dealing with a last-minute issue, dealing with the coal ship that had the explosion, so we're still dealing with that actively. So my name is Jeff Donahue. I'm the Director of Emergency Preparedness and Response for the Maryland Department of the Environment. As a department, we are predominantly a state regulatory agency, so we regulate businesses, air quality, water quality, land use, that type of thing. So within MDE, we're a department of roughly 1,000 people. Emergency response is a very small section of that. So my section is somewhere around 15 people, had some retirements and departures and things like that, trying to fill vacancies. So we're somewhere in that like 15 to 20 people range. So as a department, it's our role to protect human health and the environment. So that's pretty broad ranging. Like I said, we regulate air quality, water quality, air emissions, so on and so forth. So on the emergency response side, my section, we come out, oil spills, hazardous materials incidents. We provide support to the local jurisdictions. We provide support to, residences if you have a leaking heating oil tank or something like that. So there's a lot of various avenues in which we provide response. And that's the day-to-day stuff. Looking at the bigger picture, hurricane preparedness and stuff like that, departmentally, there's a lot more that we offer. So because the department regulates the like land use and stuff, we regulate the landfills. So if there's like a big debris management issue, you know, a hurricane comes through, we have a lot of trees down, so on and so forth, destroyed houses, whatever. Our department has the ability to allow the local landfills and transfer stations to extend operating hours, gives them the authority to set up temporary transfer stations if that's necessary to expedite the process of debris removal and that type of thing. We have a dam safety program. I don't think we have any dams in this particular area, but they have emergency actions that they can go in. A recent law was passed about 3 or 4 years ago. They can actually take ownership of a dam if it's in imminent failure because of the dam operator's inability or unwillingness to take proactive measures to mitigate the potential failure of the dam. So there are a couple avenues there. Another side, and not necessarily hurricane related, but weather related, during major snow events. If you go back when we had the Snowmageddon and stuff like that, you look and see where they're dumping snow into the inner harbor as a means of getting rid of it, because obviously in an urban area, there's only so many places you can push the snow. So that all has to be approved by our department due to the impact on water quality. So they have the authority to issue, I guess it's like an administrative order. I'm a non-regulatory person. I'm an emergency responder, so I don't know all their ins and outs. Is it something exciting? If it's a hazmat call, I want to go. We do work very closely with local fire, EMS, law enforcement, emergency management agencies for a variety of incidents and stuff like that. I know most recently the incident in Tilly Chemical was brought up as something, as a point of discussion here. So we do have hazardous waste regulators, again, because we're a regulatory agency, so they can go in, look at, you know, were there storage concerns and so on and so forth after the fact, and then they can issue corrective orders to the department or the company that had the incident to help mitigate that. So we hopefully prevent that type of release from occurring again if they deem that as a problem. Additionally, one of my primary roles is I serve as what they call the state on-scene coordinator. So I liaison with the Coast Guard or the EPA, depending on what area of the state you're in. Each one has jurisdictional area or area of authority. So if we have a major spill, we need, you know, additional resources brought in from the federal government. I would be the conduit to reach out to them and initiate that process. So they bring a much larger checkbook to the table than what we have for cleanups. The Oil Pollution Liability Trust Fund has $5 billion in it. That's with a B, $5 billion. Our cleanup fund internally is probably around $100,000 without getting additional levels of you know, approval. So the good news is, though, from that standpoint, and where we really do have the ability to assist the fire departments and clean up, if we have, use an example, if an owner-operator rolls a gasoline tanker, they're injured, incapacitated, or worse, you know, they're killed during the incident, and there's nobody to take action on their behalf, we have the authority to go in. We can hire contractors as needed to mitigate that incident. So again, that's open checkbook. I don't have to get approval from anybody above me to do that. I can literally make the phone call to the contractors, start rolling those resources. You know, there's no process involved there. It's that simple. So it truly expedites getting the emergency cleaned up. Looking over some other notes here. You know, that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'll tell you the best thing is if you have specific questions that I could answer, you know, I can articulate a lot more, but rather than me babbling about things that may not be of particular interest to you, I'd rather target things that really truly are your questions. And I don't know, do you have the ability to take questions from online? No, okay. I didn't know, like chat or anything like that, but John, you had your hand, did you have your hand up or someone back there? No, it looked like a hand. Did that cover what you were looking for? Perfect?
Yes.
Short and sweet. Sorry again, apologize for my lateness.
We are going to provide to our community members that are viewing this online tonight, we're going to provide those QR codes so that you can register, you can give suggestions. If you have any questions, please email them to us. Once we have those, we will respond to them and we will push them out so that your questions can be answered. And that terminates our live stream for tonight. Thank you for attending, and we look forward to talking to you more.